Well, hey everyone, Mr. Bayesian here, back and better than ever for your Create a Continent project. Today we're going to wrap up probably the last parts of it, which is your writing. And so what I'm going to ask you to take out while you're working through this is your continent project itself, along with the project instructions here. You can scroll all the way down to the bottom, and we are putting together these two areas right here. The two capital cities and the thesis in 2 paragraphs. So today in class, you got the opportunity to take a look at first doing a FOIO that you talked through with your partners, where I asked you to place cities wherever you thought would be the best location for them and why. And we followed that by reading an article talking about the 4 reasons why people place their cities where they do: resources, trade routes, landforms, and defense. So to give you an idea of this, let's say that I want to place my, my city right here. And I want to do it because I really like the resources I get from the lumber here, the defense that my mountains provide for any enemy attacks that come through here, and the trade routes that I've got that I can trade out with other people using the river system here. If that's the case, I'm using resources, trade routes, and defense. So I can use a combination of these just by my one location that I have. It's up to you to choose, but for now, let's scroll back to what we've got with the project here. So it says this: you must place 2 capital cities on your map. And when you place your cities, think about the resources, landforms, defense, trade routes, and a combined advantage that the areas may provide for your cities. Use your notes here. So, if I'm taking my example, and let's take my Magic Kingdom example that I've got here, out of anywhere on your map, you can place 2 cities. And so the 2 cities by the student that have been placed are Villain City right here, and then Princess City right here. Notice the names actually correspond with the themes themselves. Now you can probably already guess, but some of these cities have been placed here for specific reasons. I'm guessing, without looking at this student's writing, that's probably for defense with the mountain pass that's right here. Maybe, I would say, maybe close to some resources here with the river. Maybe even some trading with the river, whereas this one's definitely probably for landforms with a cooler climate with the bay and the ocean there, and trade routes. And so there's reasons for wherever you may place it, and so what you need to be thinking through is, between these 2 cities that you place, how many of the reasons are you using combined? So it can be 2 reasons, 3 reasons, 4. It's up to your choosing where you put it. And so once you've made that decision of where you want to place your 2 capital cities on your map, this is where we're going to go down to this thesis and paragraph writing. So if you take a look on the back of this sheet of paper, scroll down, here's your writing prompt. It says write 2 paragraphs in a thesis that follows the following outline. There will be time for a rough draft to be written and edited by your classmates in class. And so with this, here's the prompt that you're going to be writing on. Why did you place your cities on your continent where you did? We're going to first start with a thesis statement. Now, those of you who are unfamiliar with the thesis statement, a thesis statement tells me what the entire essay is going to be about. Now, you're not writing an essay. In fact, let me give you an overview of what you're doing here. I'm going to skip down here. You're probably looking at this and saying, Bayesian, I don't quite understand how this whole setup is, but this is an essay, okay? And the shapes will make sense as we continue to break through them, but for this time around, we're only going to do this part for your essay writing that's here. Okay, so we're doing kind of a mini essay to get you started on your first writing prompt. So don't worry about the introduction right now. We're not going to touch it. Don't worry about the conclusion. We're also not going to use that as well. In fact, all we're going to do is write a thesis statement that I'm going to give you, which will be 2 sentences long. And that will tell you what body paragraph number 1 is, which this is body paragraph number 1, and body paragraph number 2. Okay, you're going to use the TEST format. Does your body test out? And we're going to be using that same format, but this time you're going to write 2 body paragraphs and a thesis statement that's going to tell you what the entire 2 body paragraphs are about. Now, if you're wondering to yourself, okay, Body paragraph number 1, body paragraph number 2. Well, this is going to be on your first capital city that you place, and your second body paragraph is going to be on capital city number 2. That's right here. So yes, one whole paragraph will be dedicated to one whole capital city, and so will the other. So keep that in mind as you're going to be doing your writing for this. So let's get back to our thesis prompt. Okay? There's 2 sentences in a thesis. That's all you're doing. And I'm actually going to ask you to directly put this down on your paper. It's a fill in the blank. The central reasons for the location of the capital city on, and this is where you're going to put your continent name, are ... I want you to give your reasons for settlement here. Meaning, this is where you're going to fill out landforms, trade routes, resources, whatever your combined reasons for settling are for your cities. This is what you're going to list here. So, if I'm taking a look here between Villain City and Princess City, I'm going to take a look at the writing that this student has done. Now, you'll be typing up a rough draft, and your final copy will be MLA format, and I'll talk about that in class. But if you go down here, here's the thesis statement right here. All right? So the thesis statement is right here. The central reasons for the locations of the capital city on, and this is Magic Kingdom right here. Okay? So they've named their continent, are resources, boom, trade routes, boom, and defense, boom, right there. A very simple sentence. You copy it down word for word. This person, this student, name their continent, and then the 3 reasons for putting the locations of the cities are for resources, trade routes, and finally, defense. Now you can choose any one of the combinations that you want to choose, okay? It can be 1 reason for both, it could be 2, it could be all 4. So you're going to list which ones they are. Once you've listed that and actually filled in the blank, your second sentence now is going to explain why you chose those reasons for settlement. That second sentence is going to give the reader a roadmap of what you're going to be talking about in your paragraphs. So check this out. This student's roadmap is this. The location of Princess City, right, that's their first city, lies in the midst of the beautiful Tarzan Valley containing good farmland and protection from the mountain ranges surrounding it. So we know that that's probably going to be talking about resources right here with farmland and protection with defense here. Villain City, however, which is the second city, lies between Cinderella Lake and Aurora Bay, creating seaports to trade goods and with the water very close for a resource. So again, we're talking about resources and trade routes here. So notice between both cities, they've used all 3 of the reasons they've given in the very first sentence that's there. So the second sentence gives a roadmap of why they chose what they chose. And they're doing it based off the location, Tarzan Valley, which I've got right here, all the way to next to Aurora Bay, which I've got with the Villain City that's here. So once you've listed your thesis statement, which is going to tell me what the entire body paragraphs are going to be about, we're going to go now down to the paragraph setup. And it's exactly like we've talked about in class as you did some of your writing to practice with chunks and TEST. Does your body paragraph test out? So the very first sentence in your paragraph is going to be your topic sentence. It introduces the sentence, introductory sentence, explaining what the rest of the paragraph will be about and connecting it to the, and here's the change, the thesis statement. Does what you put in your topic sentence match up with what's going to be in the thesis statement that's here? We're going to follow that by 3 chunks. Now a chunk is very simply an example plus an elaboration. That equals 1 chunk. So when I say an example in this one, it's going to be the names of your landforms, climate, or vegetation zones. Those are all what we call proper nouns, and you're going to get those based off of your climate. And then you're going to elaborate on it to explain why you placed your city where you did for resources, trade routes, landforms, or defense. You're going to give me a total of 3 chunks, meaning 3 examples plus 3 elaborations in 1 paragraph. You can do an example and an elaboration in 1 sentence. And finally, the last sentence, I want you to close it off. I want you to restate the reason for settlement, which points back, again, to the thesis statement here. So let me show you how this all fits together. Let's go to this student's writing here, okay? It says Villain City, and this is the topic sentence right here, okay? Villain City is a semi-large city based around transporting goods, okay? So already we know with transporting goods that are here that that's probably going to match up with the trade routes that you have. So that's a good connection that you're going to make from trade routes to transporting goods. Good, we're talking about that for the rest of the continent, along with its ideal location to defend against enemies. So now we're talking about defense, while replenishing needed minerals and resources. Excellent. So within this entire thing, we have defined in our introductory sentence that's here the need for these 3 reasons. Now if I go back and see what it says that's here, I know that I've got my topic sentence that introduces it. Now take a look at the chunk. The chunk looks like this. Located practically right on Aurora Bay, there's the example, ships dock and trade goods within the town. Excellent. That's the elaboration. Notice if I'm looking at the map, Aurora Bay is here. So they used a proper noun and example and explained that the trade routes are used with the bay that's here. Fantastic. That's chunk number 1. Now with Aurora Bay in place, Villain City is partially surrounded by water. Okay, so again, Aurora Bay is your proper noun. And then the elaboration is explaining that it's surrounded by water, which is good for defensive decisions. Excellent. So that's an elaboration. And again, we've got trade routes, which points back to trade routes, which points back to trade routes. So it's in the introductory sentence or the topic sentence, and it's found in the thesis statement. Fantastic. With defense, 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 and then finally, with there being water and aerial ocean, there's your proper noun. It provides a coastal breeze, water as a resource, and seafood in the water for consumption. Excellent. That's your last elaboration. And again, that all matches up with what you've got here with aerial ocean. So I can use my continent and the proper nouns there and be able to explain them to relate back. And finally, to close it off, Villain City is a phenomenal place to live because of the climate, trading opportunities, and abundant amount of natural resources for your personal use. Fantastic. Close. That's there. I repeat the same thing for the next city, which you'll notice that this student has done, talking about Princess City. And again, I should be able to point it all back to my thesis statement that's up here. As you roll through this, I'm going to ask you to also take a look all the way down your rubric, seeing how it's scored, and you can see that the paragraphs here are going to be scored in a certain way. I'm only going to read one paragraph to you to grade for this project. So I'm looking for a strong thesis statement that expresses the central locations, an introductory sentence that clearly introduces the ideas, closing its sentence smoothly transitions to the next, and then I'm looking for proper nouns, right? There's your proper nouns right here. And I'm looking for an elaboration that follows proper format and gives descriptive and, notice here's the key, insightful elaboration to tie examples to the thesis or the claim. This, my hope, is that it gives you an idea of how to go about writing for your parts that are here. You can take a little bit more reason why people choose to settle where they do, which I think is going to give you a hand with it, but ultimately use those resources we've been practicing in class. Use your notes that we've taken a look at here, and then keep in mind finally that this is just the start of an essay where I'm going to give you the thesis and the body paragraphs for Capital City 1 and 2. We'll add the intro and the conclusion later on. So I hope this has been helpful. As always, email me or ask me questions in class, and I will be happy to help you. Thanks, everyone.